Chapter 1. My name's Liam, and I work at a lighthouse that faces the wrong ocean. When I say that, people usually chuckle like I'm making some kind of joke. They don't get it. Maybe they don't want to. Out here, on the edge of nowhere, there's nothing but gray cliffs, bent trees, and a sky that's always too low. No tourists, no fishermen, no ships cutting across the horizon, and no real ocean either. Just blackness, like someone drained the sea and left the world bleeding out from the wound. The lighthouse I care for is called Wetley Point Light. It's old, older than anything else around here. The paint's peeling, the stone walls groan in the wind, and the iron stairs inside scream with every step. They stopped putting it on maps a long time ago. I don't think the town down the hill even remembers it's here. I wouldn't be here either if I had anywhere else to go. It was supposed to be a temporary thing. After Mom passed, I got restless, started drifting. A buddy from an old job told me about Wetley Point. Quiet gig, he said. Just keep the lights spinning and make sure the place doesn't fall apart. Sounded perfect. First day here, I noticed the strangeness. I stood at the top of the tower, looking out past the cliff, expecting to see blue water stretching forever. Instead, nothing. An endless black pit, swallowing the daylight. It shimmered wrong when the light swept over it, like looking at an oil slick or a deep bruise. It must be the fog, I told myself. Or a trick of the light. You tell yourself a lot of things to stay sane. Weeks blurred into months. Same routine. Check the light, polish the lenses, patch leaks in the roof, write pointless notes in a logbook no one reads. Every night, at sunset, I climb the stairs, crank up the generator, and set the light spinning out over the abyss. Nobody ever answers. No ship horns, no fishing boats. Just the slow, lazy turn of the beam slicing through the dark. Except sometimes, on the very still nights, I think I see something moving out there. Something so big it takes up half the horizon. Not a ship, not a whale. Something with weight, something old. And sometimes, just before I force myself to look away, I see tiny points of light clustered together, blinking in slow, impossible patterns. Eyes, maybe, or worse. I don't mention this in the logbook. Some nights, I talk out loud, just to hear another voice. Sometimes I talk to Mom, even though I know she's gone. I tell her about the things I see, the way the air feels heavy, the way the ground hums if you press your ear to the floorboards. I tell her about the dreams too, the ones where the lighthouse isn't standing over cliffs anymore, but floating, bobbing gently on a black sea that stretches forever. In the dreams, something swims under me. I never see it. I just know it's there. I always wake up before it surfaces. The worst part is how natural it all starts to feel. Like my brain is folding itself into the wrong shape just to survive. Like the darkness outside is sinking into me, little by little. Tonight feels heavier than usual. The sky is bruised purple. The wind tastes like pennies. I crank the light into motion, watching the gears shudder and groan. As the beam swings out over the void, I catch a flicker of movement again. This time, it's closer. I swallow hard, pretending I don't notice. The radio crackles uselessly behind me. Static. Always static. I've stopped trying to call anyone. Nobody answers after dark. I wrap my jacket tighter and settle in for the night. Hours crawl by. I think about calling it early, maybe catching some sleep. But the rules are the rules. Keep the light moving. Always keep it moving. Still, in the back of my mind, something gnaws. Something's different tonight. I can feel it breathing out there. Waiting. Chapter 2. I didn't sleep much after that night. Even after the sun scraped itself over the horizon, bleeding pale light across the cliffs, the feeling of being watched didn't leave. It clung to me like wet clothes. I shuffled through the morning routine, checking the oil in the generator, tightening the railing bolts, but it all felt mechanical. My mind was somewhere else. Around noon, the fog rolled in thicker than usual. It wasn't like normal fog either. This stuff was heavier, grittier. It tasted like metal on my tongue. When the light from the tower hit it, it didn't just scatter. It twisted, curling into shapes that almost looked like hands reaching. I tried to shake it off. I went down to the supply closet near the base of the tower, thinking maybe I'd inventory the spare bulbs and cleaning supplies, anything to keep my mind busy. The door stuck in the damp air, and I had to shoulder it open. While moving a crate of dusty kerosene cans, my foot caught on something, a ring in the floor. Small, rusted over, nearly invisible. My heart hammered against my ribs as I bent down and pulled at it. The wooden panel lifted with a groan, revealing a ladder leading straight down into darkness. I hesitated. Every bone in my body told me not to go down there, but another part of me, the same part that stared too long into the void some nights, pushed me forward. The air below was colder, tighter. The rungs of the ladder were slimy, and the wood of the walls looked half melted, like something had gnawed on them. My flashlight's beam barely cut through the gloom. At the bottom, the cellar was bigger than it should have been. Long stone walls stretched outward, swallowed by shadow. Shelves lined the walls, filled with yellowed papers, cracked jars of unrecognizable things, and old, brittle books. One book sat apart from the rest, placed carefully on a pedestal. It was a journal, leather-bound, warped from dampness. The name embossed on the front was almost unreadable, but I could just make it out. Jonas Marrow. The last keeper before me. Hands shaking, I opened it. Most of the pages were smeared or torn, but some entries remained. His handwriting was desperate, slanted, like he'd written it while running from something. The ocean is not an ocean. The light must never touch it too long. It remembers. Some nights they come closer. I can hear them singing beneath the tower. At 1 a.m., the light must stay off, or they will find the door. The words hit me harder than the cold air. My mouth went dry. What door? The one I'd just come through? I flipped through more pages. Some were just frantic scrawls. Drawings of eyes, rows and rows of unblinking empty eyes. Diagrams of the lighthouse with strange marks circling the foundation. Mentions of the tide below, though I never saw a tide here. Just the black. Then, at the very end of the journal, a final scribbled line. If you hear them knock, do not listen. They wear the voices you miss the most. I slammed the journal shut so hard dust exploded into the air. A noise rattled from above. A soft creaking, like weight shifting on the boards overhead. I snapped my flashlight up, but the light only caught swirling dust. Nothing else. Still, my heart wouldn't slow down. I climbed out of the cellar fast, slamming the hatch shut behind me and shoving a heavy crate over it. Like that would stop anything, if it really wanted in. The journal burned a hole in my mind all day. I couldn't focus, couldn't sit still. Every sound, the wind moaning through the cracks, the seagulls crying overhead, twisted into something darker. The rules had changed. There were rules now. At sunset, I climbed to the tower with leaden legs. The generator coughed to life. The gears shuddered. The beam of light carved out into the blackness, and as the clock ticked closer to midnight, I couldn't stop staring at it, watching it spin, wondering if tonight the light would find something it shouldn't, wondering if the knocking would start. If it did, would I listen? Chapter 3. The night dragged its claws across the hours. Midnight passed, and I sat hunched by the narrow window at the top of the lighthouse, watching the beams sweep the void. I had my watch set, an old battered thing Mom had given me years ago. I stared at the second hand, ticking its way toward 1 a.m. The journal's warning beat against my ribs like a drum. At 1 a.m., the light must stay off. My hand hovered over the switch. It felt wrong, like I was about to betray something ancient and furious. The last sweep of the beam caught something at the edge of the darkness, something tall and shifting. My breath caught in my throat, and then I did it. I killed the light. The generator sputtered and whined before settling into a low, angry hum. The room plunged into darkness, only the glow of the instrument panel casting sickly light on the walls. I waited. At first, nothing happened. Just the hiss of the wind sliding along the tower's bones, the groan of the old stone settling into itself, my own heartbeat hammering loud enough to drown it all out. Then, a sound, faint, scratching, like fingernails tracing the outside of the tower. I leaned closer to the glass, trying to see, but the blackness was total. A living thing, pressing against the lighthouse, smothering the world. The scratching grew louder, becoming a tapping. Then a knock. A soft, careful knock on the front door, 4 stories below. I bolted upright, heart thundering against my ribs. The journal's words screamed through my mind. If you hear them knock, do not listen. They wear the voices you miss the most. Another knock, firmer this time. And then, Liam? My blood froze. It was her. My mother's voice, clear as anything, floating up through the stairwell. Baby, it's cold out here. Let me in. I staggered back from the window, knees knocking together. My brain screamed that it couldn't be real, that it was some trick, some echo the darkness pulled out of me. But another part, the broken, lonely part, ached to believe it. Please, Liam, the voice crooned. I'm tired. It's so dark. Let me come inside, honey. Tears blurred my vision. I clutched the railing, digging my nails into the rusted iron. Another knock. I miss you. I pressed my hands over my ears, squeezing my eyes shut. You're all alone, Liam, she said, softer now, almost sad. You don't have to be. We can be together again. I backed away until my heel caught on the top step. I almost tumbled down the whole flight. Instead, I clung to the wall, gasping, heart splitting itself apart. More knocking, louder now, angry. Let me in. The last words tore through the lighthouse like a storm, rattling the windows, shaking dust from the ceiling. I bolted the hatch to the stairwell shut, dragging a filing cabinet across it for good measure. My hands moved without thinking, survival instincts kicking in where rational thought failed. The knocks turned into pounding. Something, some heavy thing, threw itself against the door over and over again, sending tremors up the tower. The beam outside stayed dead. No light. Only the blind dark and the thing wearing my mother's voice. Minutes stretched into hours, or maybe it was seconds. Time shredded itself in that darkness. Then, silence. I didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe. A scraping sound, like something dragging itself away across the stones. The wind picked up again, mournful and hollow. The structure creaked as if exhaling. I waited until the first pale blush of dawn seeped into the sky before unbolting the hatch and creeping down. The door at the base of the lighthouse hung slightly ajar, and there, carved deep into the wood around the frame, were marks, rows and rows of jagged circles, eyes, watching, waiting. Chapter 4. I couldn't make sense of the carvings. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, circling the door frame, some so deep the wood splintered inward. They weren't human-sized either. Some of the gouged circles were as big as my whole face. My fingers brushed one and came away sticky. Something black seeped from the marks, slow and syrupy. It didn't smell like blood. It smelled like the sea, only worse. Rotten, old, forgotten. The journal felt heavier in my pocket. "They will find the door," Jonas had written. Was this the door he meant, or was there another? I shoved the door closed, bolting it twice, jamming a broom handle through the latch for good measure. It didn't feel like it would help, but it made me feel a little less helpless. I needed answers. The cellar. I hesitated only a moment before yanking the crate off the trapdoor and pulling it open again. The darkness below felt even thicker now, heavier somehow, like it was alive and breathing up at me. Flashlight in one hand, journal in the other, I climbed down. This time, something was different. There was a second door at the far end of the cellar. I could have sworn it hadn't been there before. Iron, old and corroded, with strange symbols scorched into it. Circles again. Spirals. Twisting things that hurt my eyes to look at. I flipped to the back of the journal, hoping Jonas had left some kind of map or explanation. There it was, a crude sketch of the lighthouse's foundation, a note scribbled beneath it. The gate to below, never open it. Gate. Not door. Gate. I should have gone back up. Should have sealed the trap door and forgotten any of this existed. But my hand moved toward the iron latch anyway. The metal burned cold against my skin. For a moment, it felt like I was pulling against the weight of the entire ocean. With a shriek of rusted hinges, the door creaked open a few inches. A smell rolled out, heavy and damp. Not rot, something worse. The smell of something that had never been alive, yet hungered all the same. Beyond the door, only darkness, deeper than the cellar's gloom. Moving darkness. I shoved the door closed again, heart slamming in my chest. My hand left smears of blood. I'd cut myself on the latch without realizing it. As I turned to climb back up the ladder, I saw them. At the edges of my flashlight's beam, shapes moved. Tall, wrong shapes. Their outlines flickered and twisted when I tried to focus on them. Like the afterimage of a bright light burned into my vision. I didn't look twice. I scrambled up the ladder, slamming the hatch closed behind me, shoving the crate and a stack of old engine parts on top of it. The lighthouse groaned, deep and low, as if it had felt the disturbance. I paced the floor, mind racing. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the journal. I flipped through the pages, desperate for something, anything, to tell me what to do. If the door opens, the light must burn brighter. I stared at the line. My stomach twisted. The bulb, the light. I ran to the maintenance closet, pulled out every spare bulb I could find. Most were old. A few were cracked. Only one looked remotely usable. I climbed the tower 2 steps at a time. Sweat poured down my back despite the cold. Every creak of the stairs sounded like footsteps following me. At the top, I yanked the burnt-out bulb from the socket. My hand slipped. The new bulb almost fell, but I caught it, heart hammering. I jammed it into place and flipped the generator switch. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the light roared to life. It wasn't white, like before. It burned a harsh, almost bluish hue, searing through the fog, cutting deeper into the black. And in the distance, things writhed. I saw them for the first time. Full shapes. Towering, skeletal things, draped in shrouds of mist and leaking tendrils of darkness from their joints. Rows and rows of glimmering, lidless eyes blinking out of sync. They flinched from the light, twisting and pulling back into the void. For the first time in days, I felt something close to hope. The light could hurt them, but it also made them aware of me. They turned as one, and started toward the lighthouse. Chapter 5. They moved like a slow tide, endless and deliberate, spilling across the black nothingness toward the lighthouse. I could barely tear my eyes away. The creatures weren't running. They didn't need to. Every step they took stretched the distance wrong, pulling the horizon closer. It was like reality folded around them, like the world itself was helping them reach me. I tore myself away from the window and scrambled down the spiral stairs. I needed to reinforce the doors, block the hatch, hide, anything. The journal slipped from my jacket pocket and hit the floor, flipping open to a page I'd somehow missed. They do not break walls, they find cracks. Cracks. I remembered the trap door, the heavy iron gate downstairs, the way it hadn't sealed right, the dark that had breathed against my skin. There were cracks in the lighthouse, cracks everywhere, and the light. I sprinted back up the stairs, lungs burning. Outside, the creatures drew closer, their outlines blotting out the few stars that still dared to glimmer. The beam swept over them again. Some flinched, others just stared, rows of unblinking eyes fixed on me. The generator coughed. "No, no, no," I whispered, racing to the control panel. The old machine rattled violently, spitting black smoke. The light flickered once, twice, and died. Shit! I beat my fists against the panel, twisting knobs, throwing switches, praying to anything that might still be listening. The emergency backup, a hand crank, sat bolted to the wall. I grabbed it and started to turn. It fought me, stiff and reluctant. But slowly, the beacon coughed back to life. Dimmer this time. Flickering. Not enough. The shapes were at the base of the lighthouse now. I heard them dragging against the stone, whispering in voices that skated just below the edge of hearing. "Liam, come down. Come home." The walls began to sweat. Black, viscous tears leaking from the cracks between stones. I stumbled back, slipping on the slick floor. My flashlight rolled into the corner, its beam cutting a pitiful wedge through the gloom. A low groan shook the entire tower. The stones around the trapdoor bulged inward, as if something enormous was pressing up from below. The creatures outside weren't the real threat. Something worse was trying to get in from underneath. The journal's words burned in my skull. If the door opens, the light must burn brighter. If the light dies, run, run. But where? The nearest town was 20 miles across crumbling cliffs and dead forests. No way I'd make it on foot. The lighthouse's old signal boat, the Wayfarer, sat tied to the dock below. If it still worked. If I could make it that far. I bolted. Down the stairs, two at a time, slipping and crashing against the walls. The pounding in the stone grew louder, frantic, like a giant heart trying to burst free. At the base, I hesitated. The door. It was bulging inward, wood cracking along the seams. The bolt groaned under the strain. Something heavy slammed against it from the outside. I threw my weight against the crate covering the trapdoor, trying to hold it down, but it pulsed under my hands, rising an inch, two. "Not enough," I gasped. I had to move. I shouldered the door open just as the wood started to splinter. The creatures stood waiting, a wall of darkness and glittering eyes, but the light from the hand crank, however weak, still seeped out behind me, forcing them to stay back a few precious feet. I ran. Across the rocks, down the crumbling path to the dock. My boots slipped on the slick stones, but adrenaline drove me on. The Wayfarer bobbed in the black waters, its paint peeling, ropes frayed. I leapt aboard and started the engine. It coughed, choked, caught. The lighthouse loomed behind me, its light flickering like a dying star. On the shore, the creatures crowded together, seething and restless. And in the tower's top window, I saw her. My mother. Or what wore her face. She smiled and waved. Chapter 6. The Wayfarer sputtered and bucked under me as I pushed the throttle as far as it would go. The black water churned around the hull, but it wasn't water anymore. Not really. It moved wrong. Waves curled up against gravity. Droplets hung in the air longer than they should. and beneath the surface, something massive shifted. I kept my eyes forward. I didn't dare look down. The lighthouse shrank behind me, a dying star against a sickly black sky. That thing, wearing my mother's face, kept waving until she disappeared into the gloom. The journal's final pages burned against my side. The ocean is not the ocean. It watches. If you run, do not stop. Do not listen. The wayfarer coughed again. I banged the console with the side of my fist, muttering curses and prayers under my breath. Ahead, there was nothing. No shore, no lights, no stars, only endless darkness. I didn't know how long I pushed the little boat forward. Minutes, hours, it all bled together. The compass spun uselessly, twitching like a broken thing. My mind drifted, lulled by the engine's struggling hum and the rhythmic slap of wrong waves against the hull. And then, a sound. Soft, lilting, a woman humming. I stiffened, my hands locked on the wheel. "Liam," a voice called sweetly from somewhere behind me. "You forgot your jacket, honey." My throat closed up. It was her voice again. I didn't turn. The journal's warning screamed in my mind. They use what you love. The humming grew louder, closer, almost brushing against the back of my neck. I pressed the throttle harder, but the engine protested with a sick grind. Something cold and wet brushed my shoulder. I bit my tongue to keep from crying out. Tears blurred my vision as I stared straight ahead, refusing to acknowledge the thing creeping closer. It whispered now. Soft nonsense. Memories twisted into baited hooks. You were such a good boy, always helping with the garden, always so kind. A sob built in my chest. I swallowed it down. And then, the boat shuddered. Not from the engine, from something underneath. The water, or whatever it was, heaved upward, lifting the wayfarer like a toy. I clutched the wheel as the nose of the boat slammed down hard, throwing me against the side rail. Above me, in the endless black sky, a new shape formed. An eye, massive, luminous, pupil like a vertical wound, wider than the lighthouse itself. It blinked once, slow and deliberate, and the sea answered. Towers of water rose around me, spiraling into grotesque shapes, mouths, arms, hollow faces screaming silently. The wayfarer spun helplessly, caught in unseen currents. I knew then. I wasn't escaping. There was nowhere to escape to. The lighthouse hadn't been built to warn ships away. It had been built to contain whatever this place was. And now I'd let it out. The engine died with a final, pitiful cough. Silence fell. The boat bobbed in the dark. All around me, things moved beneath the surface, drawn closer by my stillness. I could hear the scraping of scales, the soft, wet slap of limbs too many and wrong. A decision burned in my mind. Jump? Stay? Run? There was no real choice. I ripped the flare gun from its mount near the console, loaded the single precious shot. The journal had said, the light must burn brighter. I aimed straight up and pulled the trigger. The flare screamed into the sky, bursting into a red sun. For a moment, the darkness recoiled. The sea hissed and thrashed, boiling where the light touched it. The eye above me squeezed shut in pain. Shapes beneath the surface shrieked in fury and fear. And the wayfarer lurched forward, caught in a new current, one pulling away from the eye. I grabbed the wheel again, teeth gritted, guiding the boat toward something. In the distance, faint and wavering, a pale blue light flickered. Hope. Or another trap. I didn't care. I aimed the dying boat toward it and prayed the flare's light would last long enough to reach it. Chapter 7. The pale blue light grew closer, shimmering just beyond the reach of the flare's dying glow. I squinted into the gloom, my heart hammering in my chest, each beat screaming faster, faster, faster. Behind me, the sea howled, A low, thunderous rumble that rattled my bones. I didn't dare look back. I could feel it, though. The eye reopening, furious and vast, hunting me across its impossible domain. The wayfarer shuddered violently. Water, no, not water, not anymore, slammed into the hull, clawing at it with invisible hands. Shapes circled beneath, some the size of houses, others small and sharp and quick. I kept my gaze locked on the blue light. It wasn't on the water. It was the water somehow, a glowing patch spreading outward like a doorway. My flare fizzled and sputtered overhead. Darkness crept back in, thicker than before, heavy with rage. The boat hit the edge of the glowing patch with a jolt so hard it threw me off my feet. I slammed into the deck, gasping, tasting blood. The wayfarer bobbed once, twice, then began to sink. No, no, no! I scrambled up, grabbing the flare gun, empty, and the soaked journal. My boots slid across the slick wood as the boat tilted violently. With a cry, I hurled myself into the blue. The world flipped upside down. No, inside out. Colors I'd never seen twisted around me. My skin burned, my bones cracked and reshaped. I screamed but heard nothing, not even my own voice. I tumbled through a tunnel of light and dark, feeling parts of me peel away, scatter like dust, reform, and then, solid ground. I coughed, spat black foam, and rolled onto my side. I was lying on a rocky beach under a bruised purple sky. The air smelled like wet stone and electricity. Behind me, the ocean was gone, replaced by a massive, yawning pit that stretched endlessly downward. From its depths, I heard music. Not human music. Something older, wiser, hungry. I pushed myself up, trembling. Ahead, standing crooked among jagged rocks, was a door. Wooden, peeling blue paint, rusted brass handle. It stood alone, with no walls around it, just a door frame in the middle of nothing. It pulsed gently, breathing. I stumbled toward it, every instinct screaming at me to stop, but there was nowhere else to go. As I approached, words formed on the door's surface, seeping up like bruises. "You let the light die." Tears filled my eyes. "I tried," I croaked. "I didn't know. I didn't understand." The door shuddered. Another sentence appeared. "Will you open it?" I hesitated. Behind me, the pit boiled. I could feel the eye's gaze pressing against my back, tasting me. The door might be a trap. It might be the final step into whatever hell I'd stumbled into. But the pit was worse. I gritted my teeth, reached out, and turned the handle. The door swung inward, revealing my childhood bedroom. Sunlight poured through the window. Birds sang outside. I stood frozen, my mind fracturing under the sudden, aching familiarity. A figure sat on the bed, humming softly. "Mom?" I whispered. She turned to me, and for a moment, just a moment, she looked exactly right. Soft smile, kind eyes. "You're safe now, Liam," she said, holding out her hand. I stepped forward, and her eyes blinked sideways, not up and down, sideways. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. The walls of the room rippled like heat waves, revealing glimpses of something vast, something skeletal and endless. Her hand, its skin sloughing off in wet sheets, reached for me again. "Stay," she whispered, her voice layered with hundreds of others. I turned and ran. The room collapsed around me. The door snapped shut behind me with a sound like a gunshot. I tumbled back onto the rocky beach, gasping. Above, the pit began to close, like a mouth sealing shut. The sky brightened. Faint outlines of real clouds formed. The ocean, a real ocean, lapped gently at the shore. I lay there, broken and bleeding, until I could move again. Eventually, I staggered to my feet and walked inland, leaving the pit, the door, and the dead lighthouse behind. I don't know where I am now. The sky is still too purple. The trees are wrong, too tall, their branches bending like fingers. but it's better than what I left behind, I think. Sometimes, when the wind is just right, I hear the ocean calling me back. Sometimes, late at night, I see a blue door standing alone in the woods. I don't open it. Not anymore.